Welcome back to the Man Down Podcast. I am your host, Ted Knutson. I'm joined by Patrick Von Straten. And today we are going to talk about dating apps. I do not need to endure the level of abuse that I'm about to experience in any phase of my life. I feel like I should be beyond this. But if it makes your lives better, if you have a better sex life, if you have a better romantic life, a better dating life, if you're just getting a couple more matches per week on the apps, then it's worth it. Like, we will take that pain for the team. I hope you guys enjoy this one because I'm not sure that I will.
I love you saying we. I've got like zero skin in this game. If I can think of something embarrassing to tell you about myself during this, which I'm sure I will be able to, then I will, because we need to even it up a bit. Because prior to this, I've received a couple of versions of your dating app, your dating profile, I've got them open on my phone. So yeah, this is gonna be a good one.
Oh, good, great. I'm glad that I'm gonna try to enjoy this. So we're gonna. If you missed the dating one episode, please go back and watch that. It's not a prerequisite, but it does give you some frameworks and ideas for how to approach dating that we're going to reference in this show. So not only are we trying to increase the views to make sure that everybody watches that one, but we put a lot of work into that. We think it's kind of useful. So the two things to know about dating apps that I think are really important up front is, one, demographics matter. So first of all, like, what is the skew of the dating app? And in something like Twitter or Tinder, it's like 4-to-1 men. Like, that's not an ideal place to compete for matches. If you're a man, if you're a woman, congratulations, you will have almost as many hookups as you like. So demographics matter, and it's something that we'll talk about as we review, actually, from a database perspective, the different apps. We're not going to go through all of them, but we will reference a bunch of them, and we'll tuck into some of the more popular ones in detail. The second thing is that populations matter. So population matters in terms of how many people are on the app, like how many daily users are on the app. Monthly is not super useful for you because, like, if somebody just pops in, once every 30 days to window shop and browse and, hey, is anybody cute on here? That's nice. Or do I have 500 likes from all the boys that are interested in me that I never responded to?
Sure.
Like, that's some really nice affirmation for a woman if she does that. Almost never happens to dudes. So very different experiences there. That's one element of the population skew that matters. But then because there are network effects, the other one is, what is the population of people on this app in your local area look like? And from country to country, and we know that we have quite international followers and listeners, from country to country, this will vary. Like, the United States is sort of the most valuable place, but what works in the US might not work in Australia, might not work in the EU, UK, might work differently in, India or Asia. Presumably there's Tinder for Chinese folks that's tightly controlled by the government, and they'll use that in any way that they shape and form they need to in the future. So those are like the guiding principles that you have to understand about the apps. The other thing that we should reference up front is these are tools. They are not like the end all of the thing, right? So if you would like to find dates, this is one way to do it. And optimizing your experience that you have on these things, you have to play their game, whatever that game is super important if you want to use that tool. But you don't have to. You can find ways to go out into the world and do this stuff as well. It's really important for you to have backups effectively in your process for finding a potential partner. And if you have a very robust social life, your backup is your social life, really. That's probably your primary. The dating apps might be a secondary there. If you don't have access to a great social life right now, go back to the friendship podcast we talked about. Like, that's a really important thing for men to flesh out. We will, in future podcasts, talk about how to potentially create more male friends. I've already had DMs asking me, should we do some meetups in my local area, potentially in London as well, which I think would be valuable. Sure. But yes, so I'm preambling a lot here because I'm, a little intimidated about what to follow.
Well, I think it's understandable. Look, it's a really complicated topic, and also when we're talking about it, we end up kind of having to play the game. And with this podcast, we wanted it to be more inclusive, more welcoming, and to try and make the idea of connecting both to friends and potential partners seem less intimidating. With the dating apps, you sort of have to just buy into the way they work, which sucks a bit. But I agree that, like, given that if you're a man who wants to date women and the dating apps have a preponderance of men and relatively few women, then one smart thing to do might be to just fight the battle on different terrain.
Right.
Go somewhere else where the ratio is a bit more favorable to you.
Favorable ratios, awesome. And it's a big deal. And yes, so in something that we talk about, like optimizing your time, optimizing your energy spent, it's really important. So I think we should probably cover a couple things up top, because the expectation setting is actually the most important part of kind of maintaining a nice sense of balance. Like, am I doing worse than I would expect? When I get involved in
Okay.
this, what was I expecting? And if I didn't know the reality of this, then my, where I set myself as an expectation versus what actually happens on these apps might be hugely misaligned. And it's not
Mhm.
your fault. You might not even be like remotely unattractive compared to the population. It might just be like, oh, this is the game that you're playing, and you need to understand the
Mm.
returns look like this and they don't look like this. And that also can be a trigger to like, hey, you need to date in person more. Like, you've had lots of success in person. Like, that's a good place for you to find people. So I think that's something that I found interesting and challenging. Will upfront, in my experience, and the reason why we even kicked this off, if you look in episode 0, we talked about this, is I have been on the dating apps off and on a bit since I left my marriage a few years ago. And these days on places like Hinge, I will get anywhere between 2 to 5 matches a week. And I went back and I pulled people I've dated that I'm still friendly with. And I said, hey, just give me a numeric number as to approximately how attractive you think I am. And they were, they obviously opted into me, so they're interested. They probably are skewing higher than the normal population, but they
Mhm.
they came around about an average of 7. So if you knock me down, say I'm probably like a 6.5, but I'm 48, so like I'm not that young. And I was like, I'm getting about 2 to 5 matches on the dating apps, and two things occurred. Like, one, they're like, no way. Like, yeah, seriously, like that's how often, like, that's not even possible, because like I go on the dating apps and I get like 100 plus a week. I have so many likes, and they'll often say, look, I'm not big headed about this. I don't have to pretend. Like, you can see my app. And I was like, this is insane. Are you kidding me? Not that you're not
Mm.
like super attractive. I believe you're super attractive, but like 100 times more attractive than me. Is that reality? So yeah, like I started pulling on this thread because I realized that women that are interested in me, that I've had nice relationships with, dated for a while, are getting anywhere between 5 and 20 times as many matches on a weekly basis on these dating apps. So I was like, I got to figure this out. Like, we got to talk about this. And the second thing that happened was a couple of my friends slash exes slash people that I know that are in this space, like, your dating a profile must be terrible,
Mm.
which you're going to enjoy seeing. I would like to first start. It was not terrible. It might have only been an average dating profile. I've seen a lot of your dating profiles, you being the people out there in public. I've seen a lot of women's dating profiles that are so much worse than mine was before.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't fucking matter, right? Because you're the product and you're being marketed to the
Mhm.
customers, and the customers are people you would like to date. In my case, it's women. I don't understand women very well, so I needed some help in hopefully improving my dating app. And we've got before and after evidence of that in the bottom half of the show.
Yeah, so we're gonna so this is what we're gonna do today, right? We're gonna have a dig into what was working before. I mean, I guess it was working. Like, some of these women obviously were brought in by, the busted net full of holes that you were throwing out there, but then you got some brutal help to improve it.
So I would like to say that it was working better than average, and we should probably
Okay.
start discussing what normal looks like on these different apps. So like,
Mm.
let's tuck into the app space first, and then kind of reset everyone's expectations as a man for like what you should be looking for. So here's my experience, and this is true for the vast majority of men, but we're going to start with the biggest of the dating app platforms, which is Tinder. And for those of you who don't know, I think Match.com owns something like 80% of the dating app traffic slash
Yeah.
population. So like, one company owns 80% of all of this. And they've kind of rejigged a lot of their, almost white labeled some profiles to be able to say, oh, this is for your type of people and this is for your type of people. And they find different marketing profiles that fit that type of stuff. Bumble is the women first app. You get Hinge, which is looking for deeper types of connections. Tinder is the hookup platform, and Tinder was the first one, right? The other thing to understand about the fact that one company owns 80% of this is a business. They are very interested in maximizing revenue out of this business, which does not necessarily mean, gentlemen, that they are interested in getting you to your goals. And that's another important element of the whole fight.
Yeah, I guess that every couple that that they successfully create is 2 users fewer, and more crucially, probably a woman fewer, which I guess is like their entire thing. Like they can't lose women, whereas they can afford to lose men. I mean, I guess
sort
as well,
of, but men spend 96% of the revenue. Men spend 96% of the revenue on these apps.
Jesus. But there are always more men coming, so to speak. When you say it was the first, Grindr preceded it, did it not?
Okay, I apologize. It was the first one that I was aware of, and it was the first one that was widely available. But yes, I believe grinding was, the primary purpose, which is not a surprise given that it's a men's hookup app primarily initially, that's then expanded out into being mostly a gay app.
Yeah, and Grindr actually seems to weather changes in the dating environment better than a lot of other dating apps. So over the last couple of years, there's been a downturn for a bunch of these apps, seemingly. But they said that something like 600,000 Tinder users left the app last year. Now, you don't know how many of those are like dead profiles that have been culled. It still seems like it's a pretty robust platform. But all the platforms lost tons and tons of people. But I believe as a proportion, Grindr lost fewest. I guess Grindr serves its purpose better.
Absolutely, and I think that they have like a very engaged user base that pushes back on any sort of lack of service there. Another thing that concerns me about the future is AIs are getting better and better about creating any sort of content, and engagement content around dates is not insignificant. This is another reason. It's not the primary reason, but it's certainly another reason for men in general that are looking to date to nudge for dates as quick as possible. You want to meet these people in person within a short period of time. You do not want to form a text relationship with something. Presumably these are still mostly women. In fact, it would probably be a bit of a scandal if they weren't. But nevertheless, it's always a concern that you don't know what's on the other side of it. Catfishing is a real deal. There are tons of stories about people who never showed up to weeks long, months long sort of conversations that they were really excited by, or they showed up and they were like entirely different than what they led you to believe. And the only way to get sort of verification proof is in person. And obviously, in person is where humans actually relate best. So that's what you need to do.
Okay, so you want to get off it as quickly as possible, but how many options have you got to do that? How many chances have you got to do that? Because you said that your friend was getting 100 messages a week or 100 matches a week.
Easy. And
okay.
So one thing to be aware of, though, is the distribution of kind of how we rate people and their attractiveness is not the actual distribution of like where they fall in the population, right? So it's not a flat line. There's not like 10% that are 10s, 10% that are 9s. Sure. It doesn't look like that. It looks like a giant bell curve where actually it's probably closer to like 1 or 2% are people that someone would rate as a 10. If you're a 7 or a 7.5, you're like in the 85th percentile, which is really good. Sure. If you're a 5, then you're kind of in the middle, but that's okay. Like you have lots of company around you. And there's also like, we will talk in this podcast about ways to improve your appearance or your dating, your potential as a partner.
Sure.
There's tons of things that you can do to make yourself like look more attractive, but also be more attractive. So we care about that. So let's look into Tinder to start with. Reports suggest that Tinder has at least a 3-to-1 male to female worldwide ratio. It might be better in Europe, but data on the ground varies on that one. Sometimes it's like 78% men, and you're like, ooh, that's a tough spot to go compete in. And Jeez. The bulk of the people that are using this for actual sort of hookups or dates are in that sort of 25 to 34 range. And so that's another thing that you need to be aware of. Like if you're outside of that range, like first of all, you're probably not going to find your people there. But second of all, the people that are there are not going to like look up because they're mostly looking for hookups of like hot people of a similar age bracket. So like that's something to be aware of. As I said, 96% of Tinder's revenue comes from men, which is fucking bonkers. Like men, you guys are the ones that are spending. Like we got to figure out how to become more efficient and spend better. And another funny one that I found was the average height of men on Tinder is reported as 6'1", and the U.S. average is 5'9". Apparently, only tall people use Tinder.
Yes, that seems plausible. I don't know why. Okay, I know we'll come on to this later, but I don't know why you would overpromise and underdeliver. I have no idea why you do that. So okay. So when
I can tell you why. I love this though.
Well, I guess it gets you in the door. You know, I suppose that
it's a filter. And if you don't read the filter, you're not in the fucking population that might get matched. I remember, so Patrick and I have met in person a couple times ago. We met like a decade ago.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, I am legit 6'2", and Patrick is smaller. And between you and Hamill, I felt like, you know, I'd walked into the Lollipop Guild for this podcast where I'm like looking around, I'm like, hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah, like but this is the thing. I think I've just never found. Look, I've never found it to be a problem. Like that's the thing. I understand that obviously it's a kind of social media thing, or people talk about it a lot. But I've never actually found it to be a problem in real life. But I don't know. Maybe
you have a tall personality.
Internet dating. Well, also okay. I also think that there are different kinds of physicality. So I find that the only people who tend to think that I would have a problem with being short are tall men. Women never think it, and because I'm still taller than most women in heels. And
wait, when you're wearing heels, they're in heels.
Well, okay. Well, if I'm in heels, then definitely. If they're wearing heels, then it's 50-50.
Obvious jokes. Sorry, how many times have you been thrown?
I'm a dad too. But you know, I also meet a lot of guys who kind of say that they're in good shape, and what they mean is like they're thin and they run or something. And I think, well, okay, I have different things. You know, if you have broad shoulders or you have big arms or whatever, then there are all sorts of ways to kind of signal masculinity, I guess, physically. But yeah, anyway, when I first started a dating profile, I was like, I think I'm somewhere between 5'7", 5'8". I haven't measured myself. Not in that regard anyway. And so I was just like, I'll just say 5'7", because if I say 5'8" and then I turn up and I'm like not, then that's bad. Whereas I was like, I don't give a shit like about being short. So
you don't have marketing brain, my friend. You need to have marketing brain in this world.
No, because it just didn't, yeah, but it didn't matter. I think this as well, you know, this is at a time when I suspect it was a much less feral environment, because this is, you know, 2013. So I think the ratios were probably more favorable. And as a result, I did like fairly well. I don't just mean like, oh, I hooked up with loads of people, but I met a lot of people that I at least got on with and like had a personal connection with, whether it was romantic or not.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Again, we're sort of baseline setting how these things operate so that everybody can make better choices going forward. So average female on Tinder gets 1,003 matches a year, so 2.75. And the average male on Tinder gets about 400 a year. And this is despite the fact that women swipe right on Tinder an average of 8% of the time, every 13th guy. Men swipe right on Tinder every second girl, a little less than 46% of the time.
Yikes.
The problem overall is Tinder has the most users, but also the most noise, the most competition, and is still really a hookup app. So it's largely just for, you know, young people that are looking to get lucky. And even then, the competitive environment is really, really harsh.
Okay, so we should expect then Tinder to be a bit miserable for everybody. Like the ratio starts as like kind of post one child policy China situation. And it just sounds like a bloodbath. Like one swipe right for every 13th guy is absolutely insane for me. Like, so okay, what about the other apps then, which kind of claim to be, you know, deeper or female led or whatever? Like, what are those more favorable?
So the next two kind of on the list are Bumble and Hinge. Okay. Bumble is more the female led. It used to be that women like had to start the conversation. Like I think they've adjusted some of that in recent years. They actually had a BFF version as well. So like Bumble for female friends effectively, which I think actually is not such a bad idea. Kind of grooving on that one. And then you get Hinge, which is sort of the more thoughtful app. Bumble apparently has like 50 million users. Hinge is at least 25. And I think Hinge has been kind of on the rise in recent times. Again, it depends on where you're at.
Okay. So Hinge, when you say it's deeper, like what does that actually mean in practice?
Well, we'll look at it in a minute, because the profile that I've been eviscerated on is my Hinge profile. But it's they're trying to create prompts that potentially give you more meaningful connections. Now, there's lots of
Mm,
other places like, Match.com was one of the early ones. eHarmony was one of the first ones that are algorithm led that are kind of for older people and different.
sure.
But like, because we really care about population, like we care about how many people are on these apps using them regularly in order so that you can get dates with people that are on these apps so they can find you. Yeah, those are tougher places to be. Like I was told at one point that eHarmony was like the biggest one in the UK outside of Tinder. And I found it to be
Mm.
very, very difficult to find people. But I did find like an amazing match that was one of the best ones I've ever had. It was the only one on there. It was also the place that I felt most interrogated just for being a human being and potentially a man. So, not a place I was super happy to go back to. I have not resubscribed to that one.
Oh Jesus! I would love to know about the breakdown on the religious ones. I'd love to know about Muzzmatch, JDate, Christian Mingle,
The
because in
farmers apps
theory,
as well.
the far. Mhm. But that to me is just like just get on FetLife, man. Like ditch this shit. Where it's like men in uniform app. I was just like, get on FetLife. Find anyone.
Find
You
me.
could put anyone in a uniform. It'll be easy.
Weirdly, the Amish and the Hasids that you're finding on FetLife might not be the entire religious match that you're looking for.
Sure. Okay. So how do these differ, or how are they the same?
So I spent a little bit of time on Bumble, but I struggled there initially. If I went, I might even go back because it does have the highest population. But one of the things I think I'm more comfortable with is like Bumble allegedly is like 75% men, even though it's the women app. I guess men
Hmm.
will go to where the women are. That's what we kind of
Sure.
actually do. Like if you're planning where to go out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you'd be like, where are we going to find women at? Unless you're going out getting horribly drunk with your mates. Hinge is 64% male. So like again, slightly better ratios there. On Bumble, women get a match one out of every two again, and women like on average one out of every 16.
Jesus.
But Hinge is approximately the same, which is also interesting. And then the demographics on these two apps, the 24 to 34% or 34 range, which is like sort of the bulk range,
Hmm.
is like 38 and 40%. So still similar, but not as heavily skewed as the Tinder side of stuff.
Okay. All right. So does this just suggest then that we should just go for the one that has the most favorable rate of, right swiping from women? Is that where we go?
You also might just need to sort of check your local area, right?
Hmm.
If you've got like a female friend group, or if your sister has friends, like where are your sister's friends sort of at
Sure.
on these? Like you're looking for sense. Right? Not to be like primal, but like where can I find the things and how do I follow the trail? And I think for the most part, like the broader apps are going to be a little bit better for you as long as they have high populations. So, but then there are some, there's lots of sub apps that you can get to as well. I'm not sure we want to skip ahead to those. There's things like Raya, it was
Sure.
originally for like Hollywood-ish people or
Yeah.
actors and famous people.
When it was invite only, like is it still invite
I
only?
think it might be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to know a friend of a friend. I've never been on there. I've talked to women who've been on there. There was always the good anecdotal like Affleck story as well, where like
Yeah.
Affleck tried to hook up with somebody and then sent her an actual video of, hey, it's me, like Ben Affleck. I'm trying to match with you on this platform. I don't know if he's still there, but he's single again, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he's available. I
Would
probably did never delete the profile.
would
Okay,
you
so
match with Affleck?
yeah, sure. I
Totally.
think look, I'm actually a big Affleck defender. I've got to say,
I'm
he's
a
a smart
huge.
guy.
I have absolutely defended Affleck. I defended him so hard to the last girlfriend that I had. Like I was like, no, he's actually really funny and smart, and he's willing to
Yeah.
laugh at himself, and he's
Hmm.
done some great work, to be honest with you, and screenwriting, and understands how to pick a good pick, and yeah.
Yeah, and he's kind of a stand-up guy as well, with like trying to get below the line people paid. Plus, I think he's actually at his hottest now. I think a load of these guys when they're young, they're kind of like a frat boy looking, and now I think he's kind of like a bit grizzled and miserable, like peak Affleck.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like as somebody
As a
who's
miserable middle-aged man.
somebody who's in vaguely the same age range. Uh, that's a thing that I've talked about quite a few times to people. Age gap relationships are opening up more for lots of good reasons. We'll cover this in
Hmm.
a whole show, and a lot of it is like men have always been super happy with age gaps. In fact, like so many things that we talk about now that we think of like, oh, that's a thing. Like, man, France and Italy have been doing age gap affairs for like a bazillion years, right? It's like always been a thing,
Sure.
and partly it was patronage and partly it was affairs and like whatever, right? And now like women are able to actively choose age gap relationships, and there's lots of actually really interesting psychological and emotional reasons why they are choosing to do that. When you listen to the stories and when you listen to why they're not choosing to date men their own age,
Hmm.
it's not even particularly about the money, as everybody seems to think it is. It's often about security and somebody who's emotionally
Sure.
stable and somebody who understands that, you know, they've got their own interests as well, so they're not all up in their business all the time, stuff like that. So that's a different story in a different episode, but I thought that was quite interesting. I don't know how we even got there.
We went through Affleck. I don't know, but well, quite a few people have been through Affleck, I think. But you know, it does feel.
Get the test first, guys.
But I do think that hints at a useful thing, right? Which is that there's an enormous population, but as we're going to go on to, there are some ways that you can distinguish yourself from the mass of people who are not serious or who are rude or are not respectful, not emotionally available, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and very much the whole purpose of these apps is obviously to get you connections and dates, but it's much more so to find your people. Like, and
Mm.
we have the most powerful filtering mechanism in the entire world now. Like, you can't put a million people in a fucking room and then, like, you know, sift them down to exactly the person that you're looking for, or the 100 people that you're looking for. But you could do that on an app. And so that's why
Mhm.
they actually are very interesting and useful, as long as we understand how to, like, sift them better, get through the chaff, and to play the stupid game.
Okay, so how do we play the game then? Because
No,
look,
I want to
I've
talk about
barely
the
had a
fetish
round of
sites
this game.
first here. Come on.
Oh, gee, of course you do. Every day with the like sex positivity. Come on then. Like what how do you find Fet Life?
So yeah, I think these are counterpoints in our notes here, but basically you've got things like Match.com and eHarmony, which actually feels like, you know, sort of older middle-aged people are the ones that there are people that ended up there by accident because their friends signed them up to account and paid for it. But then you get places like Field. So Field is actually a really interesting smaller app, but it's much more so where it is sex positive. It's a little bit of
Okay.
a hookup element, but it doesn't feel like. It's much more LGBTQ friendly, and it's like the dating app for that type of spectrum, people that might go to sex clubs, people that are interested in sort of kink fetish, whatever that is. But it's not
Okay.
like exclusively like that. And so it's more open and more welcoming. It would be great if that place had a better population overall. You can find
Hmm.
some weird ass shit on there as well. I will not deny it. You know, there was one time where I opened up and it was a woman that was had hooks in her thighs and she was hanging via rope, and that was her intro for like what she was looking for. There was another one that I actually put on
Oh
social,
god.
but I didn't want to be mean. But it was a woman who dressed up regularly as if she were like one of those ventriloquist dolls, and she made like small dolls and porcelain things. She was like really into that thing. And I was like,
Mm.
that is horror kink to me. I could not,
Mm.
because I was fucked up from watching Poltergeist way too young as a child. But that's like examples of the extremes on there. The good space is really nice though, and it's a little bit about the poly community. It's a little bit about people that are just interested in alternative lifestyles. You know, lots of van folks, camping folks, bouldering folks, circus folks, like whatever in my local area. But that changes based on where you're at and sort of the oddness. So if you're looking for, I guess, more of
Mm.
an inclusive odd community that might be, you know, if you're looking for those types of folks, you might be more likely to find them in an obvious way on Field. And because of that, it's a little more welcoming of people too.
Sure.
So I find that element like actually quite, it's almost relaxing to go on that app, even if you don't get many connections or off of there. You're like, oh, these are kind of interesting, more chilled out people. So I think that's cool. And then you get FetLife, which is its own thing unto itself. It's probably a show or six where you could talk about it, but it's the place where people have like lots of fetishes, and then they have
Sure.
local meetups and potentially parties that you can attend, or barbecues or whatever it is. I don't know. Haven't been.
Barbecue feels quite risky, but okay, right, sure, yeah, all the sex ones. I mean, the Field then sounds like quite a good one if you're maybe you're living in a place where it feels a little bit starchier than you are. You know, if you feel that you're stuck in an environment that's maybe a little bit Tory for you, then maybe that might be a better option for finding your people, or make you, or at least make you feel a little bit less insane. Because a massive part of of what goes on with the apps, right, is that people do it really intensely for a while and then get really burnt out because it makes you
Mm.
feel fucking miserable and not good about yourself.
Or, you know, if you wanted to stick your toe in the water of some alternative ecosystem, like in the cities, you can find really vibrant elements of that.
When you said stick your toe in, I was just like, I have no idea what's coming next, but you went for water, so that's fine.
This was a
Sure.
gentle metaphor about testing new waters
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
stuff you might be interested
Was
in.
I meant to know that going in? Like, it could have gone in any direction.
Sometimes, Patrick, you have to wait for it. Sometimes the anticipation is what makes it sexy.
Okay. So are those all of them, or are there other ones as well?
So there's one more that deserves mentioning, partly for efficiency purposes, but it will be an entire show at some point, which is that there's the whole seeking ecosystem. And that is weird and complex enough.
What is like how what
so this app used to be called Seeking Arrangement. It's like the less skeezy thing of like what was it? Ashley Madison, right? Which was the affairs site. This is more of it used to be anyway, the sort of marketed as like the sugar dating website. And now it's more like you can find wealthy upscale men. They've like adjusted their marketing pitch while still containing all of the past entity there. And it's weird and complex because you're sort of mixing potential money with sex or relationships, which then brings out the professional element of that combination. But then also there's like this whole other thing that, I don't know. I find it particularly fascinating because of all the stories that I've had from both sides of that dating profile set, which actually suggests that it's way more positive than anybody in mainstream media would ever like want to admit or confess to. But there's still like elements of it that you're like, morally, I don't understand. Yeah, it's tricky.
But at least I guess, it's probably more above board in a lot of ways. Like the advantage of the more off the beaten track you get with this stuff, the more likely it is that people are being honest about the shit they're into. I guess is my theory. I assume that's right.
I think it's partly that. I think it's also partly that there's like a ton of mentoring. Like you meet people on that particular site that you wouldn't necessarily have an opportunity to meet anywhere else if you're a woman. And obviously, there's lots of things about it. It's too complicated to bring into today. It was just for the completeness of discussing apps that have some significant profile. I thought that was an interesting odd one that seems to just be there, but doesn't actually get super excited about their own press either.
That's quite interesting, the mentoring idea. When I was at uni, I did actually know two girls who were part of like some kind of like sugar baby site. Like basically rich men, middle-aged men who came through Oxford, wanted to go out on a date with an attractive young woman who still had some stuff to say for herself. And they both said that they were using it to try and learn about business and try and make some connections. And I think they found it, they were like, I never feel unsafe. I know exactly what the deal is when I go in, and everybody's super respectful. Whereas when I go on dates with people of my age, I have no idea if I'm going to be treated like a person or like a piece of meat.
And
it's interesting.
And in fact, they tend to have much more positive on the whole interactions with the men versus, as you say, like it's a little bit feral these days in in the broader population. Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic that deserves a lot of thought and consideration from us before we get stuck into it. But that's not today's purpose.
Okay.
Today's purpose is to make fun of me.
That's what I was about to say. Like, so finally, after all this nonsense, we're getting to the meat of the episode, which is, and believe me, there's going to be some meat because
it's not going to be that type of meat.
Shirtless Ted is coming your way. So just brace yourself, everyone. God. Okay.
All right.
Rush to the comments.
Oh dear. Weeks and weeks ago, I was talking to my friends about this, and I had a couple of women, one of whom is actually professional at redesigning dating profiles. Also, she's the one that runs the Ukrainian singles meetups in London that you might have heard of mentioned in the B-roll before. So her name's Alina. She's actually super talented, very smart. And she's like, I'm going to help you. Your profile must be terrible because you have to get more matches than that. That's an awful number. And I was like, I don't think it's that terrible. And then this is like the first thing that I get after sending her like screenshots of my profile.
Oh my God.
Like, 7-minute voice note on WhatsApp. And she's like, you can leave the second picture. All other pictures we will delete. And I'm like, never mind. I'll just die alone.
How much of it is, like Ukrainian noises, laughter. Like I assume there's a lot of that.
I'm glad you've asked, because we've actually included some of the transcript of what has been said. I swear to God, there's like 20 minutes of voice notes on how I need to improve things. But a lot of it is actually very thoughtful, professional experience in redesigning other men's profiles. And it's not all hideous. She did include one or two compliments in there about me as well, which was, it softened the blow a little bit, but not so much. Right. So here we go, guys. Let's fucking roll with this. The thing you always have to remember, though, is like you are the product. And as we said in the dating episode 1, or dating 1 episode, whatever one we called that, which should be, I think, episode 4 on there. If you're fit, that's the first way to differentiate yourself, especially as you're a little bit older. If you are a fit older man, I've talked to some people like in their late 30s into up to 50, and the women were like, look, men in that age range are almost invariably fat, bald, and boring. Like if you can differentiate yourself from that, you can end up with lots of matches. And it's pretty significant because, the more you increase the chance that one person might opt into you, like you might end up with lots of people that opt into you. And that then increases your chance of finding whatever type of relationship that you're looking for. So pretty big deal. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought I had done lots of research on making my profile better before I ever put this stuff up, because I knew that it would matter. And I have a background in marketing. Up to 10 million ARR, bootstrap by it fucking self. Like I kind of got it, I thought, but I didn't know how to market to women, and other people clearly do. So here we go. All right. So this is my profile before help. So I've got some photos here. They might be a little bit small. One of them is a face photo. Like it's actually, I think, right around Big Ben during the springtime. Lovely little photo. There's me in a suit at Wembley. There's me and my dog. That's Captain. He's gonna be 14 this year. Awesome beagle. Something that's like, I don't have any more good photos, so I threw up something that's like a pretty picture outside my back door. There's the one of me that's in workout shorts, looking fit in the mirror. And then the other one is something I was told that you should do, which is like put photos of you taking trips, right? And so this is like me outside of a restaurant in Hawaii with this incredibly long name. And I'm just like tossing things up. Like you should also be really careful about putting things with other people in there. Although, women seem to be very comfortable putting their friends in there. There's so many times you click on a woman's profile and you're like, all right, which of the 4 people in this photo are you? And then there's another one that has like 2 people. And you're like, all right, which of the 2 people? Like we're like process of elimination. You're just narrowing it down for me. By the time we get to the end of your profile, I might know which fucking person you are.
Okay, so you've got so 6 pictures all you get? Like you've got
6 pictures is what you get on Hinge, yeah. Other ones have different numbers of pictures or photos.
Okay, so you're already giving away quite a bit of real estate by having one picture that doesn't have you in it.
Sure. Although if you don't have great photos, it's probably better to have fewer ones that are there.
Okay.
So like you want as many good photos as possible, and photos are a big deal. And even for women, so men will incessantly just scroll on photos. Guys, I encourage you not to do this. Like, obviously, you can get rid of the 60% that are uninteresting to you, maybe even 3 out of 4, but like, you should definitely look at the words that they're saying, because it's going to clue you into like what type of date you might have and what type of partner you might be introducing to. Like, and it'll also clue you into, oh, these are the things that I should talk to them about when I open up the conversation. Because like, just because someone matches with you doesn't mean you're getting the date. You have to actually find ways to create enough connection so that they're like, oh, this person would be great to talk to over a drink, for dinner, coffee, whatever. Like, it's really important. So for me, I was like, okay, this is kind of the best that I can do. And one of the problems is an older guy. So how many professional photos do you have out there, Patrick? Mr. I got 2 kids. Yeah, how many great photos do you have, like you doing something like, by yourself, or
I don't know. I have no idea, but like a few.
A few.
I don't know if I got 6.
Exactly.
Okay. Sure.
And so we got selfies going on here. Despite the fact that like I've had a fairly public life, I don't have lots of great photos of me in action. most of my film roll is me taking photos of nature or buildings, which I think is pretty cool, or my kids. Sure. It's not a lot of me involved. Like that's fine. So this This was me being thoughtful, listening to the things that are on the internet, and then trying my ass off in order to make it not terrible.
Okay. Okay. So these are the pictures. This is like the first filter that you've
Yes,
got to get past.
this is me.
Okay. So this is in fact the national fish of Hawaii, is it not?
Something like that. Yeah, it's in Maui.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. So
Did you just crush that like first time? How many times did you practice that before you sped it?
I haven't.
Okay.
Just got game.
Disgusting.
Okay. So
would women describe you as a cunning linguist, perhaps?
They describe me as a lot of things. I don't know if anybody's called me that for a while. Okay. So this
Things
is
to
the
work on with your wife.
This is the first comment. This is the first comment
Yes.
on your. It's fucking brutal. Okay.
This is transcribed from some of the voice notes, possibly not the 7-minute one. This was after the 7-minute one.
At least she knows what you're trying to accomplish with it. Like, what you're trying to accomplish with it is clear. And it does accomplish that, but just not in a sort of refined way, I guess, is the problem.
Yeah, and for men, like, you want to show that you have at least a little bit of an interesting lifestyle, right? You want to, and in many cases, like, you want to show that, like, you like to travel. You might be able to offer them better experiences or join them on interesting experiences through the world. And so that's a little bit of what's going on here. I don't have anything of me climbing a mountain, or at least nothing with me climbing a mountain that's not with like somebody that I shouldn't be putting in photos. So like that's the challenge too. So she's saying, I understand that you want to short travel, it's fine, but it's boring as well. You have a strange pose, not with your arms up, and then like these exasperated noises that are difficult to articulate into words. I know that men don't know how to pose, which 100% she understands who she's talking about.
Sure.
And men, and then there's like the side note, and men often put pictures with strange faces as well, often red faces with their mates. And women are like, what the fuck? So gentlemen, think elegant. And I think that that's a really good note. Like after you get rid of the fact that I don't have any flesh on my body anymore.
I think that's a really good rule of thumb. That generally speaking, like you want to seem a little bit more refined, a little bit more sober, a little bit more upmarket than your vibe might actually be in person.
A little bit more sober is actually a really good point, right? Women would like to have conversations with you that may or may not include alcohol, but like if you are constantly under the influence of alcohol, or if like all of your adventure is in and around alcohol, you and your mates going on a journey to do a thing like with alcohol, I'm going down to the pub to drink with my mates, like they're coming over to drink, like that's actually a red flag. And it's a red flag that says that like, you know, you might be using alcohol for reasons, or like I don't need to live that life. Like I want to live a life that also involves me, and alcohol isn't the most important thing. And I think that that's kind of an interesting note that is not included here, but it's part of the subtext.
And I think as well, you know, the thing you've come back to a lot of times during this is this idea that you are the product. But the corollary of that mindset is that you need to know your consumer. You want to attract the right kind of consumer. So with all this stuff as well, you're trying to say, this is the kind of woman I want. And if you are that kind of woman, then maybe we can vibe, right?
Right. Absolutely. Like, please opt into me because, like, you know, if you can see kind of who I am, and that's what you want to be seeing in your entire relationship, you get snippets of who I am. Now let's start something real to see, like, you know, how compatible we are.
Okay, right. What's up next then? This picture is out. You're done. Never show me this picture again. Alina is saying.
I'm not sure if I've killed it, but yeah, it's certainly one that should be replaced at some point as we're improving our quality of photos.
Okay.
Right.
Now, here it comes. Look, you know, you're in your late 40s. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I'm in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
You know? That sounded patronizing. I didn't mean it that way. But you know, like you're showing that you take care of yourself, that you haven't let yourself go. And look, I will say this has got very divorced energy, this picture. I've got to admit.
Absolutely fine.
Not the worst though.
So the goal is to make your profile like Adam. Yes. So we need those kind of pictures, you know, like really charismatic pictures, not you with the arms up in the air and not you in front of the fucking mirror, half naked with the phone. What the fuck? How did even this idea got into your mind?
Okay, so the issue here is that like you're very clearly proud of your body, like it needs to be more organic than this.
So I can explain it to everyone that I would possibly encounter as to why this made sense to me, but I'm not being able to explain that over the dating app, right? So for those of you wondering, my thought on this was, one, this isn't a naked photo, right? This is like a normal photo. You can walk around the street looking like this. This is not a problem. And in fact, so many women, if they're even slightly attractive in their bikini, have bikini photos in their profile, right?
Sure.
Over and over and over again. They're all there. And in my head, I was like, oh, I should show them that like I'm also pretty fit and I look pretty good like this and I take care of myself. Like these things are all conveying things that I want people to know, which is that I care about being fit. I take really good care of myself. I eat well. I exercise. I have an active lifestyle, right? It's all there in the photo. But what this photo says, gentlemen, is fuckboy who cares about his appearance. And I'm like, I'm not a fuckboy. Like I'm happy to have regular sexual relations, but I'm not a fuckboy. I want deeper connections with people. And in fact, like everything that I'm looking for these days is all deeper connection. And so she's giving me this absolutely scathing correct feedback on what this means to a woman. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm going to reciprocate what I'm seeing on their profiles, because if somebody is attractive enough to want to put the bikini photo on their profile, then I'm happy to put it on my profile. And the reality is you're not supposed to do that unless...
If you want to show the half naked pictures, you see, that was the good way, because that was a sport competition. It was not him in front of the mirror, you know, taking a naked selfie. No, competition, yes, of course, it's normal because he was like running there or doing something, I don't know.
So that type of stuff you can get away with. And I was like, I used to be in competition. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of me in mixed martial arts 17 years ago. That I also looked really good then. So I don't play like sport that would end up in competition that gives me that thing. So this has to go. Absolutely. And if you gentlemen have these photos where like, you know, they're not like professional photos of you playing sport or being in competition about something, you should know that you're kind of indicating fuckboy, and you shouldn't be indicating that if you're looking for either the connection type relationships or the life partner type relationships. It's not impossible that you'll still get dates, but it definitely characterizes you in a way that narrows the pool dramatically.
But that also does suggest a way you can game this, right? Which is you can go to your gym and get somebody to take a candid picture of you, you know, with your shirt off deadlifting or whatever.
There's partly that, like, you know, if you're in a hot area and you're out playing basketball or volleyball with your shirt off, and like, you know, maybe you can oil up and get a bit of glisten on. Maybe you can get like a Top Gun scene rocking like on the beach. Those are fucking awesome ways to get this into the profile. I just don't have any access to that type of stuff. But, you know, should you have access, like, gentlemen, again, be thoughtful, be strategic, be tactical about these types of things, because you're trying to get through the door, and getting through the door is super valuable. If you look awesome, find ways to show that you look awesome.
I want to give you credit for putting this picture in, though, because I imagine that at the time, like, look, you're proud of it, but it does require a degree of vulnerability. And I don't know, in a way, it's kind of nice that it signals fuck boy rather than something else.
So I've had body dysmorphia my whole life. I grew up as a fat kid. Then I got really skinny and I thought I was still fat. And then I was super fit into my late 20s and early 30s. And I have almost no photos of that era. I also never really learned how to smile properly. And so like I don't have like that natural dazzling smile. So there's all sorts of bad things going on here that I am overcoming in order to produce this. And I'm still getting beaten up about it, but I don't feel bad about it. I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't read the customer very well, but I don't feel bad about how good I look there. I feel like I look great, and I'm continuing to look good. There's even some abs, baby. Like that's a lot of hard fucking work, especially if you've seen the photos of me in like 2019, 2020, where I came from.
How much have you dropped?
So at one point I went from about 250 down to 190, and that was too light. So I'm 6'2", like a real 6'2". That was too light. Then I started doing weights, and I'm probably about I'm somewhere between 200 and 205 right now. And I'm really quite happy with where I'm at. I don't look at it more than like once a month, maybe even less. I look mostly about like what I look like these days. And that's something like we will have full episodes on men's health and like how to pilot yourself to a better body and better wellness and better flexibility, because it's really important for men to like change their mindset about this, but also to like get early on this curve, because the earlier you do it, the better off you are. Yeah, I feel fine. I feel like I could do a little better all the time, but everybody does. But I'm also coming out the other side of winter. So like you gotta, again, grade yourself a little bit on the curve. You're like, yeah, this is excellent. So this isn't that recent. I think this was about a year ago in November, something like that. But I don't look much different than this now.
Okay. So this is the thing. You're negotiating with this idea of yourself when you're starting one of these dating apps. And the problem is that then it can feel like you're getting relentlessly bad feedback on what you feel is your best foot forward.
And guys, so there are so many things that sabotage male mindsets, which are entirely different than women's mindsets. And women's mindsets are also challenging and very hard. But like male mindset is often like, all right, first of all, I have no power. I don't know how to do anything. Like, you know, I'm the lowest rung on the totem pole for all sorts of stuff. Like one of the ways that they find that they can have agency and control over something in their scope of life is by working out and a little bit on diet, right? And that is the red pill path that many men take. But the reality is you should just feel good about yourself because you do look good and you are controlling it and you're showing some discipline. Like this is discipline. It takes discipline to do this. And discipline's really, really hard to learn. So if you're doing that, like you deserve credit for it. But the other side of it is as you get older, people are often like, oh, I got my personal best in this. I did that. And the more you push yourself as you're getting into your late 30s and into your 40s and into your 50s, the more likely you are to pick up injuries. And you have to actually change your mindset to say, what am I doing this for? Well, am I doing this for better quality of life for myself? But I'm not competing with anybody. I'm not even competing with past me who had a much easier job at doing this, or future me who like, you know, is going to continually get older. I just want to have like an awesome quality of life. I want to be able to pick up my grandchildren and play with them, you know, as often as possible. And I want to be able to, you know, travel around and have a wonderful relationship with somebody, never being in pain because my body is lovely and fit and flexible and I have no issues with it. And I am so much less likely to wake up sore and in pain at age 48 than I was at age 43. And that's all about dropping the weight and improving the quality of my lifestyle and my diet.
Yeah, this is especially healthy mindset if you are just getting started, or if you're coming off injury, or if your life is super busy, you know, and you can't work out the way you want to. I try and have this mindset as that you talked about previously of if I'm doing something, then that's good, and I get a tick, because I used to run 5Ks 6 days a week and also do an hour and a half of weights on 5 of those days.
Beast
mode. I cannot
mode.
do that.
Where are your photos at, my friend? I want to see those fuckers right now.
I'll try and produce them. Or maybe I'll produce them for a future episode. But yeah, you know, like I can't do that anymore. Like I've got kids and jobs and I'm self-employed and it's a fucking nightmare. Okay. We're getting off piste. So that's the feedback on the pictures.
We're trying to get you off, not get off piste.
What about the text? What about the text? This is what I'm interested in, because this is the stuff that when I used to think about it, I was like, I'm always really interested in the text that people have on their pages, like pictures, whatever. I know what you look like.
People may or may not know this because I just recently watched one of our earlier podcasts about you talking about your you and the logophilia type thing. I'm just bro. What about the text? He's so interested in the text. He's even put his specs on.
Man, okay. So when I was on, what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the dating app. I met my wife on it. Okay, Cupid. Okay, so I was on this for like 7-8 months, and yeah, there was a really nice woman who messaged me like 3 times on it, to the point where I was like, should we just go on a date? Like, because she was really nice and like seemed very pleasant, but she just misspelled words, and I was just like, I can't do this till the grave. I can't do this. Like, otherwise, till death do us part would be like 6 weeks, and then I'd fake my own death to get away from this.
My pushback for Patrick on this in the last one is the same thing. Like, you'd be ruling out so many attractive Slavic women who this is their second or third or fifth language, and you're like, You don't care. Look, I've been a professional editor and writer for most of my life. I can get past that. That's fine. There, it's not a
No,
not a pure
hard
red
red line.
No.
Hard red line.
All
Okay.
right. Hard red lines here. So these were my original Hinge prompts. Like I found them very challenging, but I thought I did okay. And actually I did do okay. So the feedback was these were okay. Trying to convey who you are, right? A little bit, but Alina has some different points on this that were really valuable that I did not understand. So like you're like, okay, who are you? Blah 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 blah. These are the things that I like. And then I actually really like my two truths and a lie. And the one thing my current profile doesn't have is almost any humor at all. But again, if you understand the mindset for what you're trying to draw in, you have to do humor in the messages after you match, as opposed to putting it up front. So my two truths and a lie is, one, I met the biggest mafia boss in Taiwan at a boy band concert. Those of you who are longtime fans of the Transfer Flow know that that is a real story that I have teased but not told. Two, I sold my business for 50 million pounds. And then three, someone wrote a book chapter about me and called it Big Ted. Like, I think that those are actually really interesting ways to potentially open a conversation to somebody that's interested in you. Because if two of those are true, you're like, these are good stories. This has to be kind of fun.
And also an opportunity to let people know that you've got money.
Maybe.
You got to do it. You got to do it. I think I had something on one of these where it was like, what's your most obnoxious habit? And I was like, accidentally letting it slip that I went to Oxford. Oh, I've done it again. Like it's just,
I'm an Oxford vegan.
You just got to be. You got to accept sometimes that you've got to fucking get those numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
You must play with the deck that you're dealt, and some of us have decks that are loaded a little heavier than other ones. You get more consistently good hands, and this is marketing speak. So absolutely, like you should make it apparent that you have beautiful elements about you that someone might be interested in, and money is one of those elements, but it's not the most important by any means. Like it's not even close to that. When we talked about like what women are looking for, they're looking for partners that could provide, right? And often that's intellect and kindness and caring and being emotionally competent and available. Like those things are way more important with someone having a happy life with you than you making a ton of money and putting it out there in front. And in fact, for most people early on in the dating, it's a negative because it shows that might be all you have to offer. All you have, or you're drawing in the wrong people. Do you want somebody that's just interested you in the money? No, that's absolutely not. You want someone that can kind of read through the subtext and be like, oh, yeah, he might be able to offer me interesting experiences in the future. But actually, I give a shit about this person because they might be a good partner, not because they're going to offer me an amazing lifestyle should we get through the whole partner phase and he not realize that I'm a huge gold digger. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, whatever. Looking at these three sections, the third one to me is clearly the strongest here.
I concur,
that would be my reaction as an available woman.
So my reflection on this is I hated this so much. I fucking hated putting these things up there, which I think most men will feel exactly the same. This is why getting help is so useful and valuable. And if you're looking for help, I'm reasonably certain that Alina is going to provide us with links to be able to access her services because, I mean, we'll tell you about the before and after of the effects of this. So just so you know, it wasn't all horrible and scathing and mean and funny. Like it was funny, right? It was funny. And it says, I need a good portrait where I can clearly see your face, your eyes. You have beautiful eyes. So she's telling me the things that I should accentuate that someone might be interested in. So like we're doing lots of laughing at me, but also like she's not just beating me up. Like that's fun. And because we're friends, like she can do that whenever she wants to. That's part of being friends, right?
Yeah. Okay. So immediately better, immediately a bit more polished.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one note that I should make here, which is that I've told you I don't know how to smile. The one on the left is a lovely portrait that originally includes my son, but this one he's cropped out. Again, don't put your kids in there. Like it's a mistake. It's like, don't do it. Also, your kids didn't sign up for it. You don't have their consent. They're not old enough to give you consent, presumably. But they used AI to add like a little pristine smile there. That looks pretty natural. Not gonna complain.
I was gonna make a joke about it being AI. It's good it's good. You can't argue. You can't argue with it. Okay. And then there's one of you with a bear. So there's obviously like a little.
I'm just gonna podcast.
You know,
this for the rest of the time.
there's some subconscious programming going on there by putting a picture of a bear in, and then obviously like the name of your company
Used to be
dropped here.
But I mean, that's really just me being in a suit, right? It's like the right way to. It's the best photo of me in a suit that's not on stage at Wembley. It's a little bit more natural. We could have left the other one, but this one
They could
worked
look
better.
it up though. They could look it up though. And then there's one of you being social.
Yeah, so that's
Cool.
that's me and a friend of mine at a party. It was one of the rare photos that I have of actually being at a party. There's no AI involved there. I still need to get rid of the pretty photo, but I can't be bothered because like I don't really care about what every place is. I need to have one of like me on a trip in some sun somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Or you need to get somebody, to just like you need to go running in the fields and like pay someone to snap you.
So there are people that will take photographs for you. You can employ them to take dating app photographs, right? And actually women will go out and they will employ people to take photographs of themselves. They'll take boudoir photographs. They'll take this photograph. They'll take that photograph. They're very willing to do this. Men find it so fucking cringeworthy. But guys, I'm living through this entire hour of cringeworthiness. And I can tell you that it is worth your time and your money to get better photos. And in fact, if nothing else, your mom will appreciate it so much. Like, so send it to your mom. Like, why not? Like well, maybe not the shirtless one. She probably doesn't give a shit, but the rest of them, she'll like have lovely photos of her son. Like it could be her Mother's Day. And you get to do this for your dating app profile. So like, bam, we're being efficient, double whammy there.
Also, I think even if you don't like how you look, in 10 years, you might look back and think, I looked fucking great. One of my friends, she has this like where she's never really liked how she looks, even though she's really beautiful. But she at a certain point was like, I've got this incredible corset and I'm gonna hire somebody to take like boudoir shots of me, because she was like, I suspect that in 20 years I'll wish I had them.
Absolutely.
And now has those photos somewhere on a file but won't let us see them. So
every single man and woman that I know that's having their baby as well, like take all the photos as often as you can, like nudes, whatever, of like your whole baby process, because you'll look back on that and it'll feel so warm and wonderful and it'll trigger so much stuff. But the reality is like photographs are amazing. And shifting this briefly back to like personal life, like I have so many photos of my kids that I can remember exact things about like what's going on at that time in their life. And like, it triggers so much stuff. And without those photos, I don't have them. It's the same way with your internal life, right? So like you can remember, oh, this happened here, this happened here, this happened, this is going on. I'm very close, but not quite ready to hire somebody to take better dating app photos of me. I think that might be a valuable thing, but also because I'm in the best shape that I'm ever going to be in. Like, and so I'd like to have like memorable photos of that from somebody that's professional and really good at it, so they can help me look my best and then get multiple purposes.
And if you are a photographer and are willing to take pictures of shirtless Ted, please do drop your details in the comments below. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Like and subscribe.
Playing with the boys. Right.
Okay.
So this is the photos, and they obviously look much better. And we already realized that we have dramatically improved through some pain, but also just who cares about the pain? It's like working out, like make it better. Right. So the prompts, her guidance on the prompts were so good. So these prompts, they should guide you to what qualities are you looking for in a woman, not what type of relationship. No, you are looking for a person. And when she said this, like she was almost purring, like you are looking for a person. And I was like, oh, yes. And when you find this person, you can build a relationship, but it doesn't work the other way around. So not until. I was like, oh, this is such a fantastic mindset. So we went from me sort of describing me and things that I like and whatever. Now it's much more about a little bit about this. This is what you'd be getting, but also this is what I'm looking for. Can you opt into this? Do you want this from a partner? So dating me is like having an adventurous partner who loves great food, deep conversations, spontaneous getaways, ambitious and successful in business, yet laid back, up for a good book, a workout, adventure. Love languages, touch and acts of service, believe in genuine affection, which is absolutely true. So like, we're not lying about anything about me. Like these are mine. And I give these things. I show love through gestures and actions, whether it's embraces, so love hugs, just like Olaf. Home cooked meal, simply making life easier for each other, which I think is an awesome, like that last thing is an awesome fucking trait in a partner. Like make life easier in small ways as well as large ways.
Yeah, of course.
And the last one, I'm looking for an independent woman, which I think if you've ever listened to any of our podcasts about, what we look for and what we cherish in our potential partners or our actual partners, is true. With integrity, someone positive. Positive is a huge deal. Changes your whole fucking life if your partner's positive all the time. Loves to laugh, embraces with an open heart. And someone who enjoys travel, stays active. So stays active is a big deal for me because I don't want to revert my lifestyle. Like I don't want to revert to sort of like not being super healthy, and I'd like someone to encourage me and to do that with. And I had a person that I used to go do sort of run sightseeing with, so we'd go for runs through new places, and 4 or 5 mile runs, and it was beautiful. Like you get your runs in, you see something awesome, you go at the time when the sun wakes up. It's great. So someone who enjoys travel, stays active, and values adventure and meaningful connection, and then a true partner. And you could see like just how different it is. And also you see that the Hinge responses to this say that, oh, these actually seem like they're really good.
I mean, it's the depth that's striking, right? So the first one feels like much more surface level, and maybe as a result trying to be all things to all people. Like I'm not saying that's really what you're trying to do, but this feels like it's very targeted.
Yeah. It's just so clever, and you're like, oh, this is what an expert who has tons of experience in this field will see, versus me being smart but not having tons of experience and just trying to figure it out on my own. It really did make a huge difference. I was very much put in my place, and it's good to be humbled and to realize that expertise is a very real thing in every walk of life, and smart people can definitely give you huge amounts of help, even with not that much effort.
So you've got this expert advice. You've changed your profile. What do you notice after this? Like, have you are a data guy. Like, what's the data?
A dater guy or a data guy?
Oh, that's good.
Right. So remember that when we were talking about the baselines, average men are getting 1 to 1.5, maybe 2 matches a week, right? So I didn't know this, and I was feeling like I'm not in a high population area. Like my local area is about 500,000. If I were in London, it would be quite a different experience. And occasionally I've gone to London to try and date, but if I want to be with somebody on a regular basis, like the type of relationship that I want is like, we almost lived with each other until we do live with each other. That's kind of like how I prefer it to work. And that's really hard when, there's an hour and a half train ride in between you all the time, or a long commute. So before, I was still getting 2 to 5 matches a week, which is much better than, I guess, average, but doesn't feel like it's very good at all, to be honest with you. Now it's definitely doubled. And not only has
doubled.
Not only has it doubled, but I feel like there's much more communication and interest when somebody matches with me. Now, again, this isn't just inbound people saying, oh, I think you're attractive. This is me actively looking at people's profiles, reviewing them, saying something, comment about like something that's going on in their profile that I think is kind of cool, or being a little bit funny or whatever. Not the sort of fuckboy negging that happens. Like, I think you can get away with that in your 20s, but you certainly can't get away with it at my age. And so like you're still spending maybe an hour on the apps per week, maybe a little more, like depending on how busy your area is. So like I'm still saying yes to 20, 30 people a week, but double the matches, 5 to 10 is actually really good. And if you're able to even get like 2 to 3 dates a week, like that's a lot of dates. Hopefully you find one that you settle into, and that's great. But I was, so the before after is really quite significant, and I have been shocked again at how good the improvement has been.
Yeah, I think this last one in particular here, an independent woman with integrity and a true partner, those to me that really does show that you're trying to separate yourself from the like fuckboy demo. Because there you're as well, I think you lean into your age a little bit too. It's one of those things where everything you put on there, you don't want to be ashamed of any of it. And it's nice if you can say, well, this is the wisdom I've got as a result of being an older person on this app, and this is I don't know. I'm looking for somebody to actually share my life, who is not going to be just a little piece that fits into it as it already is.
Right. And then my dating range is huge, right? So like I'll date anybody from like 28 up to 50. And so, there's a lot of range in there for people who are interested in me to opt into. Some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you would date somebody that's that much younger than you. The reality is, like, I don't think of myself as that old. I don't physically look that old, at least with my body. Like, I've got some wrinkles and stuff like that. Once you get past a certain age, like certainly around 30, like basically everybody's mostly the same. Now,
Sure.
we've talked about in past episodes, like things that are super critical, like, do you have kids? That's a big deal. And those things are more differentiators than, purely your age range.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that is true. Like after a certain while, especially women it feels like they tend to settle into who they're going to be as adults, generally speaking, earlier than men do.
They're eternal children, is that what you're saying?
Some of us more than others. Okay. So like, if you could, would you then be able to boil down these kind of action points? Like, is there stuff that you say have you had to give advice to other people in a similar position since you've upgraded your profile?
Not yet, because none of my friends are in the dating space.
Okay.
like every friend that I have is either locked into a long-term marriage and never want to go out here again, like you as well, or they're sort of on the path to getting married. So I don't have anybody that's like actively dating right now that I chat with. Rufus Peabody's probably the closest, but I haven't caught up with Rufus lately. He's in New York. He's one of the world's largest golf bettors, professional sports bettor. And he and I will occasionally chat about the dating stuff. I'm sure we would have like really interesting chats at this point. I will happily, give some advice, but to be honest with you, like Alina will see it much, much better than I do. And this podcast like has lots of actionable things inside of it already. So we've talked about what you're looking for in the photographs. We're talking about what you look for and what you're trying to portray in your prompts, being genuine and honest, but also like showing somebody what you are looking for. This is the woman that I would like to meet. This is who you are, how you think about things. Yeah, I think it's hard. We've already done, an hour on this, and this is as distilled as I can make it as part of the conversational. But what happens with expertise is they're able to distill it much, much tighter, and you can get some baselines. But as we've noted, the baseline from a smart person who's not an expert at distilling it versus an expert just like immediately focusing on the right stuff, huge difference.
And do you find, obviously you're finding it more successful in just like the raw numbers, does this contribute to you enjoying the experience of it more?
Yeah, definitely. It feels immediately like a little more rewarding, and that I can, I'm not a loser who's never getting any dates. In fact, let me give you a mindset that is problematic. And it comes back to some shit that we've talked about, where you are not kind to yourself, even when you know better than doing this. About a week ago, I was struggling around stuff, and I had a breakup that I fucked up, and I was just kind of in the mix with it, and really, really grumpy about this. And I've married 2 wonderful women. I've had 3 awesome loves in my life. Beautiful, smart, passionate, open women who, were great communicators, and it was great. This is my facts, right? These are my facts. And we know what my pluses are. We know like what my pros and cons are for the most part. And yet I'm like, I'm not going to find anybody again. Like, I'm not going to find anybody great to spend my life with. Like, it's going to be, it's just not going to happen. Like these apps stuff, it's just so hard. Now I know better than this. And I know all the facts about me, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to end up with somebody awesome in the future. Like it's just a matter of time and energy, and in some cases just time. But that was where my head was before. Now, now that I look at it, and we've had more sun, and I'm sort of again continuing to work through stuff and think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is excellent. And 5 or 6 people that are interested in me every single week feels like this amazing breath of fresh air. It's totally different than 1 or 2 on some weeks. And so yeah, it definitely changes your mood, and then you get the other side of it. And this is where guys have to be kind and understanding. Women get 50, 100, 250, like, especially if they're attractive, who knows? You're going to get lucky if you get sifted into a pile where they chat with you, and it's overwhelming for them. And you have to not be angry or frustrated that they're not responding to you. First of all, because those are red flags, and sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. But second of all, like if they are interested in you and you still get frustrated, like then you're just like, oh, well, you've ruled yourself out, because there's another 249 of you that were interested this week. So let me just quickly move along. You got to get lucky as part of this process. This is what we're seeing in all of the data and information. And this is, again, why like being in the real world is pretty valuable, because if you're there and you take those risks and you have a little sparkly conversation, that can turn into anything. And you're not competing with 250 people right there and right then. Like, you just happen to meet them in the world, and that's great.
Yeah. And you don't want to, if somebody's not going to take you seriously, you realistically do not want to be in that person's like maybe pile necessarily.
I want to follow up on a little bit of the women's side of it, because we want to be empathetic partners. We want to consistently be able to understand their perspective. And I pull this stuff from all over social media stuff, and I put it into folders, and we'll talk about things that I saw years ago over time, because it's always fun to get some takes on it. But this was off of Threads, I think. Men want the experience of going on a date with a beautiful, smart woman, but most of the time, it's not that they don't want to get to know the woman, it's that they're too insecure to let someone get to know them. Authenticity is lacking, and this is motherfucking exhausting to deal with. This rang so true with so many people that we talk to and talk about, or the ways that you read guys sort of like pilot their lives. Like, you have to have the security to let somebody know the real you and to opt in passionately to who you are.
And I think before a date, there is a line to be walked here. I think, the difficulty, of course, is that we get a load of stuff chucked at us about how you need to be emotionally available, but also like don't give somebody the ick by like going too much. And you obviously don't want to like dump a bunch of stuff on somebody who's trying to have a fun date with you. So this feels like something where you can prepare a little bit before the date. Like, what would I like to talk about? What do I feel comfortable talking about? What do I think is interesting or useful to know about me, but that isn't like asking somebody to sit through my traumatic story, that kind of thing.
Get over your exes as well. Don't bring them up. Like, unless you get pulled about them. Sometimes you'll get pulled about them because they're trying to figure out, are you potentially a good partner? It's a little bit about if every ex has been horrible to you, like either you're making really bad choices or you're the asshole. Like, and these are, it's not just women that are trying to find this out about you. You should know this yourself, and you should be comfortable with the answers to these things. That's much more the case of that. No, I think it's challenging in many ways, especially if you're a younger man, because you don't even know fully who you are, right? And so being secure to let someone get to know you there's part of that, but like you might not know you well either. But I think this is as much about like, don't, keep somebody superficial as possible, because most women are not looking for that in going on dates. And so if you're in that space, like you're immediately going to be a person that isn't fitting the profile of what it should be. And maybe you've misrepresented himself. Now, here's another one that I pulled that I thought would be fun for you, because we talked about the the list and the list of mandatories or red flags, right? And this is just like this huge long list. For those of you listening on audio, my friend was describing what she's looking for her future husband, and it's now the funniest note on my phone, and I adore this. Tall, greater than 185 centimeters, not flexible. And this keeps coming up. I will talk to people that I'm on dates or even potentially going to go on dates with. I'd love to hear their stories about this stuff. Free of commitment issues, unambiguously into her. There's a star sign in here. We're going to skip that. Owns moderate amount of trinkets. Not too stylish, but a little normal. Wants 3 to 4 children, not someday. Autism is fine, but not socially awkward, can keep up with extroversion. All right. Some religion is fine, but not cultish.
Fair.
Must be curious, talk, ask questions. Yes. Great. Likes camping and hiking. Fucking hate camping. Sorry. This next part is the best part. Appreciates good food, cooks for her, parenthesis, but not a chef, parenthesis. Employed, parenthesis, again, not as a chef, in capitals, also not as a DJ.
Fair. I those are the ones where I'm like, I completely get it. Completely get it.
There's a different Threads that I saw before. Threads is a fun dating app for listening to people like vent about stuff. I don't know why it's the place that it happens best, but maybe that's just my profile. But it was a woman talking about hot bartender and like, should she try to start dating hot bartender and were there issues, and like all these bartenders just answered like, don't do it. It's really not worth it. Like, we're just like this. Just don't. It's a bit like, don't date a chef.
It's true. Like, go and read Kitchen Confidential and then see if you still want to date a chef. Like, there's some stuff here that I think is actually like really useful.
Absolutely.
especially the not someday on the kids.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, that's really important. And if the chef thing is just that they're like kind of that there's, you know, trauma there that you need to deal with, then sure. But if it's kind of like, I remember thinking I wouldn't date a teacher when I was younger, even though teachers are kind of my demo, just because I didn't know a single working relationship between somebody who was a teacher and somebody who wasn't. All the teachers I knew that were in good relationships were in relationships with other teachers, because it's a particularly difficult schedule a lot of the year, I think. So if there's that part of it, then I think this is kind of useful. But it's like, we're not at any point thinking here about what these things actually mean. Like, I also find 185 centimeters so weirdly specific, because that's not even like around 6 feet. That's like 6'1" or something.
It is 6'1", yeah.
Why? Unless
have,
she's like 5'10" or something and wears 3-inch heels.
There you go. Yeah, I have a photo of that. Yeah, that's a very different episode that I'm not even going to tease, but I do have a different photo that's really fun. Let's finish this off though. Has a driver's license, which I understand, because if you want kids, like you want somebody that can drive them places. Good values, parentheses, somewhat flexible, parentheses, JK, not flexible.
And what does that mean? Good values? Like, what does that mean?
Can't live in Asia or Australia.
I mean,
presumably,
fair enough.
and the last one is like this again. What does that mean? Similar aesthetic preferences. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, this is like, I want to decorate my house in a really disgusting style, and I need this person to let me do it.
Puts the feng in feng shui.
Oh, Jesus! This is such a recipe for loneliness. This is just awful. Why would you do this to yourself?
I knew you'd love it. So we're gonna wrap things, I think, consistently with some of this stuff, and you can find your own, and I think it's fun too. I got one more, and it's actually, I think it's a really good note to end on the dating apps thing, but also dating mindset in general. If I date you, I won't control you. Do what you want. Your actions will tell me how much you respect the relationship, and there should be, and how much you respect me, and to a lesser extent, how much you respect yourself. Actions speak way louder than words. This is why you want to meet people early on. You want to find out who they are. You want to find out what they act like. It's okay to question things directly. Don't let people breadcrumb you. Don't let people obfuscate what's going on. Direct communication with your potential partners to clear up any sort of confusion, and them also expecting the same of you, gets you to the best places faster. I feel so strongly about that.
I think that's a really great point to end it on. I think it's about knowing what you want, knowing what you offer, and not trying to force something that's not going to work. It feels like so much of the difficulty here comes from trying to force something that was never on the cards.
Be willing to have a wonderful, deep, secure commitment to the right partner. Like that is so valuable. And we'll talk about commitment, because I think that's a concept that's really hard for us to deal with in the modern space. But also, I was thinking about it recently. I was like, there's a little bit of an element of like people just submitting to the Jesus idea, right? Like, let me just put my life in Jesus's hands. When you commit to somebody that you know loves you and you love, and are able to just like wash over their difficulties, but also to ignore the outside world of what might be possible, because we're always thinking about, oh, I might be missing out on something. If you find somebody that loves you fucking intimately, and you love them and willing to commit with them, like you end up actually opening up so much of your space that you can give more attention to. And I think that that's really valuable, really hard for people to understand, but getting to that faster in all the ways that you can is kind of the ideal.
I think that we should say thank you, because I do really appreciate that you've had to go through your own dating history here to give us the content for the show. But I think it will be really valuable for people to understand that, yes, it is it is a very difficult market that you're operating in. You're not out of your mind, and there are things you can do to improve it, but also it doesn't say anything about your worth as a person, that you maybe need to try and market yourself in a particular way.
And in fact, so much of what we should be doing on this podcast, and what you should be learning in your own personal life, is building those core blocks and foundations and structure for having a great person outside of your dating life, for being a great person outside of your dating life, because it will improve that too. Like it will improve that so much. And it'll also make you resilient to, the blows that you will suffer as part of the dating world.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, should we say goodbye?
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening and laughing. God, I hope you laugh. And if you love this podcast, please share it with everyone that you know, because that's what we're going for. If you want to commiserate in the suffering, that's great too. And also check out our socials. We are in the process of spinning those up. We're in the process of spinning up on different podcast platforms and places that you can find us. Give us time and space. But at some point, I'm pretty sure that we're going to ask for volunteers to get profile feedback from Alina. And I promise you it will be gentler than it was for me, because she knows that she could be tough on me, but she'll be nice to everybody else.
We won't laugh at your shirtless pics the way I laughed at Ted's.
Hopefully you're hot and we'll cheer you on, because well done, man.
Good for you. If you are hot, then definitely get in touch. If you're not hot, that's also fine. But, priority given to hot people, obviously, as always in life.
All right, gentlemen. Love yourselves. Love your friends. Have a great week.
Well, look, whenever there is a Zoomer in the room, it's like when I say something about Americans, and now I have to be like, look, guys, I'm sorry. I have my closest friend who is an American. I feel like every conversation with her starts with me saying, look, I'm sorry, but
thank you, fucking Jeremy Clarkson. Appreciate it.
But I was like, this is not, but I'm like, you don't come from a serious country. This is not a serious nation.
Where did you come from?
Mate, I come from many serious nations, but look, come on. The USA is the most unserious.
Yeah,
that's a very American response to be like, what about you? Like every American I talk to, they get like that. And I'm just like, you do realize that all the nations that you're having your little teenage, crisis about are also embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
I find the pose of cynicism that you get a lot from Zoomers, like, very annoying. So yeah, this thing of just like, all relationships are based on power. So like the only thing you can do in a relationship is try and extract the maximum kind of material gain from it.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard
whether that is sex or whether it is money. I find it unbelievably annoying. And
that feels also so Russian. Maybe this is a Russian influence campaign. Like maybe that's what it is.
Okay, no, I agree with this, because like I know all the Zoomers I know use Tory as an insult, which is good, like in a way, because it means they'll never vote Tory. But on the other hand,
they're adopting the worldviews at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Their financial worldview is entirely based on like this right-wing lie of hustle culture, right? You're like, that is an internalization of like a right-wing viewpoint. And so I was like, you're all fucking Tories. You're all Tories. You're out for what you can get. You believe that because you're really good at hustling, that is the result. That is the source of all success in your life. And if somebody doesn't have success, they haven't hustled hard enough. I was like, this is the American dream, bro. This is I don't understand. It's such bullshit.
Yeah, and there's this disconnect between John Calvin and also like the actual Jesus teachings, and like how hard do you work, like Lutherans and anyway, predestination, fuck that, man.
Look,
sorry.
It must be great to employ Americans. Like I wouldn't know about this, but I assume it is, because like what happens when you found a nation on like on Protestant principles is that everybody's just like, yeah, I guess we just like work and work and work until we fucking die, and then maybe God rewards us in the next life, but like probably not. Yeah, I don't know.
Americans also had Catholicism too, so we had all of the bad things at all the time. We adopted every bad religion possible.
I don't know. Less of Catholicism, though. Less of Catholicism.
Haven't you seen the movies? There was a lot, and in fact, like there's still tons of Catholic schools out there.
Oh, sure, yeah,
trying to very gently indoctrinate the children.
But I do think the foundational ideas of Americanism
is about spreading plagues.
Which is like kind of a Protestant thing. It's like the shit they were into, right? Yeah, I don't know.
We haven't covered that in the fetishes section of the show yet.
What, spreading plagues?
Yeah, it sounds like something they're into. We're not kink shaming. Come on,
bro. Like I can't think about this. Like every week, my child comes home with some disease that is, has been brought to nursery by the swinger parents of some plain child that then I have to contract. So,
well, I think this is a very green perspective reality, right? Like we don't want to make anything extinct, and those are life organisms, right? Sure, why not? Just trying to find a framework that works here.
Oh no, I'd Thanos half these motherfuckers. Like, genuinely, I don't give a shit.
Now, is that more or less than you would Thanos of the football media space?
I honestly think I would enjoy football the most if there were no fans.
We were talking about the media, not the fans.
But it's all the same thing. Like the
These are the people that listen to us. You,
they're fine. Look, they're probably all right. I don't know. They might be dicks. I give the look. I respect their privacy, but yeah, I don't know. Like most of the football media ecosystem for sure. Like you just don't need it. It's completely it's parasitical. It's completely unnecessary.
This is going to be a hell of a show. He's in a mood right now. We should just start recording.
I'm just look. I had a rough night. Let's just do this shit.
All right, let's do this shit.